All right, if you're tackling A-level philosophy of mind, you know Descartes is a name you just can't escape. Today, we're diving into one of his most famous and most attacked ideas, the conceivability argument for dualism. He argued that there are two fundamental kinds of stuff in the universe. You've got physical substance, your body, which takes up space, and then you've got mental substance, your mind, which just thinks.
Okay, first up, let's put on our Descartes hats and build his case step by step.
Okay, so here it is, the argument in a nutshell. It starts with a simple-sounding premise. I can imagine my mind existing without my body, like a floating consciousness or spirit. Then he makes an inference. If I can clearly conceive of it, then it must be genuinely possible in reality. And if it's possible for them to exist separately, his conclusion is, well, they must be two separate things. Now, the absolute bedrock of Descartes' entire argument, his secret weapon, is what he calls clear and distinct ideas. He's not just saying, I can kind of imagine it. He's saying he has this perfectly clear, focused, unmistakable idea of the mind as pure thought and the body as pure physical stuff. And for him, that clarity is everything. Remember that phrase. It's his defense against a lot of what's coming next. Okay, we've built the argument. Now you know what comes next. Let's start trying to knock it down. The most direct way to do that is to go right for the starting line, that first premise. Can we really conceive of a mind without a body? And this is the heart of the first objection. Descartes is super confident that he knows what a mind is just by thinking about it. But what if he's kidding himself? What if his idea of a mind is actually incomplete or just plain wrong? Let's use an example to make this super clear. Take a theory like philosophical behaviorism. It basically argues that our mental states, like being happy or sad, aren't some mysterious inner thing. They're just our patterns of behavior. And, well, you can't have behavior without a body, right? So for a behaviorist, conceiving of a mind without a body isn't just tricky, it's a straight-up contradiction in terms. It doesn't make any sense.
So you see the clash, right? On one side, you've got Descartes, who's totally confident that he can understand the true nature of the mind just by looking inward. But the objection fires back. Whoa, not so fast. Maybe what we think we can conceive of is just a product of our own ignorance about what a mind actually is.
All right, on to objection number 2. And honestly, this is probably the most famous one and a really crucial one for your essays. Let's be generous for a moment. Let's say, okay, Descartes, you win. We can conceive of a mind without a body. The next killer question is, so what? Does that mean it's actually possible? This brings us to a key distinction you have to get your head around. It's the gap between what's logically possible and what's metaphysically possible. One is about what we can imagine. The other is about what could be true in reality itself.
First up, logical possibility. Think of this as a huge, wide-open space. It's basically anything you can think of that isn't a straight-up contradiction, like a four-sided triangle. A flying elephant? Logically possible. A square circle? Not so much.
But metaphysical possibility, that's a whole different beast. It's not about our concepts or our imagination. It's about what things really are, their true identity in the world, an identity we might not even know about. And this is where the trouble starts for Descartes. Here's the classic example you have to know. Water. A few hundred years ago, you could easily conceive of water being made of something other than H2O. No problem. It's logically possible. But now we know better. We know that water's identity is H2O. They're the same thing. So it's metaphysically impossible for water to not be H2O. Our ability to imagine them apart didn't change reality one bit. This brings us to a brilliant little thought experiment, the masked man fallacy. So picture this. A bank gets robbed. I see the masked man on the news and I think, well, I can conceive that the masked man is not my father. In my mind, they are two separate ideas. So here's the question. Just because I can think of them as two separate people, does that mean it's actually possible they're different people? And the answer is a big, fat nope. Because if it turns out that the man behind the mask is my father, well, then it was never, ever possible for them to be different people. They were always the same person. My conceiving of them as separate was just based on my own lack of knowledge. The critics say Descartes is doing the exact same thing with mind and body. But hang on. Descartes has a pretty slick comeback here. He'd say, look, those examples, the water, the masked man, they don't count. Why? Because your ideas about them are confused and incomplete. But my ideas of mind and body, he'd claim, are clear and distinct. And for him, an idea that is that pure, that perfect, is a reliable bridge from what's conceivable to what's genuinely possible. Okay, Time for our third and final line of attack. And for this one, we're going to be really generous. We'll grant Descartes everything he's said so far. Let's say it is metaphysically possible for the mind to exist without the body. We can still attack his final conclusion. This one's a bit subtle, but it's a killer point. Possibility doesn't equal actuality. Just because something could be true doesn't mean it is true. Look at it this way. Descartes' argument, at best, proves that his conclusion is one possibility on the table. But what if there's another possibility? What if it's also possible that mind and body are just two different properties of one single substance? Descartes' argument doesn't rule that out. It shows us one way the world could be, but it doesn't prove that's how our world actually is.